All right. Giving it a moment. It does say we are live, but we'll give it another moment because sometimes it kicks us out and then I got to reboot it. But it looks good. Looks good right now. 10 seconds in. Wow. Merry Christmas. Welcome, everybody. I am Michael Anthony, and most of you guys know that. But this and what you're listening to, but this is what you're listening to, is the Oracle Talk Radio Network. And I am from America Disclosing Uncensored. Unfortunately, I have news that I don't like to actually, spring on people at the last moment. But Maria is tied up in traffic in London and is just stuck there. And my guest is going to help me get through this. We're going to have conversations of greatness in many ways. And I'm very excited to have Isabel on. And in all respect to Maria, to tell you a little bit about her, because we are going to get this done. We're going to get it done. A week or so past ago, we tried to go live. I had no power. Now, today it was her turn, being stuck in London and not being able to get home to do the show. So a little bit about who she is and what we were going to conversate about today was the solstice and things like that, the celebrations that are going on, the places in the world that celebrate and what some of these things mean. And she's a wealth of knowledge. There's no doubt about that, especially of the ancient world. She covers everything that takes us to these other realms of thought. Not only that, she comes with as an authority now, and many look at her that way. Also, being a master dowser, an author, a teacher to the world, a world traveler, an investigator, a LiDAR specialist. I mean, I don't think there's a stone she has not looked under for her information. Her accomplishments and credentials are immense. There's no other way to put it. And I give all respect to my friend, and she is a really good friend. She will be with us. I promise we'll get her in. She is also highly respected, as I said, as an authority on many topics. And you can also find her documentaries, her interviews, her TV appearances, anywhere on YouTube if you type her name in, Maria Wheatley. She's also going to be coming to America. That was part of what the show was about. Then she's going to be going to Egypt with Carrie Cassidy. They're bringing in the alien aspect to the human aspect and whatever else was going on there. So this would have been a fantastic presentation of a show today. And I was going to open up to Maria with, and I don't know how to shut this new thing. The program's new. I can't do nothing about it. Now everything beeps even when I turn it off. But I was going to say, Maria, take us back in time. I didn't know any other way to say it, and I had to come up with this rather quick. But nevertheless, I have a fascinating guest also with me today, and we're going to be talking about some other types of things and how she connects with things. And they're quite fascinating. Why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody who you know, because you're just as important today as I am or anybody else.
Well, it seems to be a synchronistic moment because I have been working with inner earth beings for the last 3 months, really consciously. Yet I've been researching that for the last 20 years. Stone circles are Maria and past life time travel. I've got a story on that. I'll have to share that with you later before I forget that. So I am very open to many layers of reality and have always studied it. My PhD is actually in architecture, about how children could become stewards of nature. And I've worked with children, getting them connected to source and their own inner beings. That's been my work. And now I'm expanding it into connecting all humans to nature. So that's kind of my theme. So it works from, working with the weather to let's talk to some other beings who aren't human to find out what's going on.
Right.
I think that'll do.
Well said. Well said. And that actually connects everything in a way that I would have been discussing with Maria today. How source interacts to humanity, nature, etc. And one of the things I would have brought up to her today, what I would have liked to is like the books of knowledge, the mystery teachings in schools. Who were they? We now know that there's I think it's pronounced Serona document where it takes us back to the year 1000, where it reflects to John the Baptist. And it makes me wonder if the apostles, if we look at them that way, as they are so called and said that they are and were some of the first teachers to the Templars and to the builders, and that we're passing on these fascinating teachings of how to place everything on these ley lines. And this is where Maria gets fascinating, because, she gets out her dowsing rods and does all these wonderful things, and finds them and looks upon how structures were placed there. And you have to wonder, you truly have to wonder the magnificence behind this, of how this word spread and how the teachings got to the people and how they lived, because they lived different than what they built in these megalithic structures and so forth. And I find that fascinating. Do you cross-reference between?
Oh, massively here, because I studied ley lines from the age of 17. So, and that's how I actually got to know my inner earth beings, because of work clearing the sites where all this ancient, filthy, disgusting sacrifice was taking place, releasing souls. As a result of that, these beings were really fascinated, like, who's she? We better talk to her. So that's where I got into kind of telepathic communication as a result of that. But the fascinating things, because I love to delve deep, I've seen that the ley line theories we've had, and I've looked at every single one of them as well. We've had all these very strong geometric models. But the more I talk with earth and various elements of nature, I see it's more like the capillaries in your lung. It's much more organic than we've been allowed to see. But the various takeovers in our history, whether you say it's from the Nephilim or the reptilian, whatever ordering, controlling structures we human beings have had to encounter and be subjected to, they've kind of reordered these energetic lines to their own principle, knowing that's how they control us. And so they've become more and more kind of rigid and pinned down by these very specific monuments, the pyramids, and all of the other sacrificial sites, most of them really darkly used in order to keep the earth energy down and controlled. And so I'm getting a lot of information on that, which is thrilling and very satisfying, because I've been, working towards this, gathering all the information I could find for a long time.
Yeah, I get that. And that's part of what drags me into these rabbit holes of mystery, because that's what they are, but they do so connect. People look at us as a prison planet, and I think what you said kind of reflects into the exact wording, but different, of part of the darkness and keeping us down, not into the part and the focus of the light, whatever it takes. But then we see examples like of how, religions came into spiritual enlightenment and so forth. But I think what we were actually doing in many ways, when we look into it and we start to question it, was a diversity of negativity of structure that actually was manipulating a lot of the, human population, the people of the world.
Well, what I see, even if you look in let's just call it the truther community of the last 5 years, and you see people coming forth with true authenticity, and then what happens? They get hijacked. Not all of them, but many of them, because as soon as you bring forth a piece of information that has truth in it and power, so it brings people to you and changes their minds and gets them inspired, then those controlling structures of old need to come in and hijack it. And of course, that, you look at all the beautiful religions, the spiritual moments of true, pure source, and then, Rome comes in and takes over Christianity and takes all the information and turns it 180 degrees and totally distorts it thereafter. Same thing with these beautiful energy sites, in the earth. They're the places where her energy comes through. They're sort of transmission points from her body to the cosmos. And then, of course, let's block them. If you're a power controlling structure, you want to stop natural, pure energy from coming forth. And that's this pattern. But it doesn't seem like they can sustain it for very much longer. They're just trying dirtier. But it's not going to work, because the energy overwhelmingly is shifting.
Yeah. Well, you're an observationist. You see it. I see it. I think the world's starting to see it, and that might be a place now where, it, as you said, it's failing, and we're starting to turn it around. But it still goes back to me in question. I know this is futuristically in present day thought, but it just makes me wonder because we know that there is something feeding everything somehow. And maybe, as I wake up, as I was telling you before going on air, I wake up with these thoughts and these instincts that I just know. And maybe somehow in my dream state, telepathically, I'm being fed positivity and energies that guide me. So before the thought even enters my mouth is always already involved in whatever it is. What places us there? Do you think because of what you are now experiencing, especially over the past 3 months, that the teachers are actually coming to us in dreams, and it has nothing to maybe to do with books of knowledge and mystery schools and things like that? Could it just be implants of thought and sheer technologies?
Yes, and 3 years ago, I had a really interesting healing experience. Over thousands of miles, this guy was in America, and he was suddenly in the room with me and just taught me a series of commands I could use. And one of them was, I command Prime Creator, I command Prime Creation to give me all of me now. And you say that 3 times. From that point on, it was fascinating because that command felt audacious. How can I command Prime Creator or Prime Creation? But my soul was collecting all the pieces, all my past level lives, my present, future, parallel. And that's the teaching, because when you get into your whole full soul body, you can access anything. So when you're asleep, you're just getting the information through from more parts of your soul, because we're enabled to. The energy is high enough that we can now access more of ourselves.
Yeah. And maybe that's why we all celebrate together at certain places around the world. And, through yearly events and sometimes other types of time management sequences that we are, sharing within altogether is, one world of people of that source, and that brings us there. I mean, we're not doing it because we don't believe in it. We do it because I think we believe in the positivity and focus of the structure. And how would people not know how or why to do it unless they experience it? And something draws people to these sites, not just archaeologists, but just regular Joes, regular people. And not just you and I, because we do something or have a different vision of focus and conversations and discussions. So yeah, that takes me back into that place. But I love the fact of what you were also, getting around of what was going on the last 3 months, bringing you into this higher place of source. Could you define that a little bit more? Because I find that truly fascinating to be able to have a discussion with somebody who I know is, on board because they are finding themselves in ways to share the information, who come from fantastic backgrounds. Many people do it, and you're one of them. We're not all crazy. So lead us down that road a little bit. So anybody coming in that is listening, and right now I think they all should be, just because of what they are experiencing, not because what they're seeing in the skies, but because how they are awake now.
So I had a lot of knowledge that's been building, coming through into my physical, material, human mind.
Okay.
Because always curious, always open, despite lots of tragic, horrible things, I kept my soul connection. What I was experiencing, though, was this frustration, because there was the information and I was writing books about inner Earth, about the future of our planet, what we needed, what our planet wanted. Couldn't get them out. No publisher wanted to publish them, of course, because they're all one-eyed agenda publishers. I was doing all that I could in my power, and it wasn't allowed to come through. So the frustration, of course, I turned to, what can I do? I've got a spirit. I've got spiritual power. I can connect to infinite power source. So I feel for these children that now are still being sacrificed. I feel for those in the past. I know I've always been able to communicate with anyone who's passed over. Why don't I start to see what I can do there? So I honed in on it and realized that I could use commands and connection to source through my soul, which I was just strengthening every day through practice. And I began releasing these souls from different places, because you can do it through intention and purity. And I have a voice. I use my voice. It's you bring sound through from the realms that are not materialized. Sound is that one form of energy that you can call through from source. It's like bringing brand new power into the world. So I was using the overtone power of my voice to bring in this new energy to kind of push at these points where these little soul splinters were left in their trauma, shock, and pain, and feeling and watching the release of it, different ways of seeing how there had been effect, a positive effect, whether it's just the sun coming out when you ask it to, or in my case, I just went, for the last time, I went to this site that I'd been fixed on, very near to me, and I just did some last work with my voice, and I joked and put my phone to the sky and said, hey, let's see if there's any sign of witness that this is now had its full release and these souls have returned and we've got the earth a little more cleared here. And there was this beautiful orb, and I just said, oh, there's a nice orb. Took it home, looked on the computer, and it's like, oh my God. It was beings right there in daylight, flying around, just saying hi. And thereafter, I started to talk to them telepathically. But it was just a series of communications because of my intention to make something, to do something, because I wasn't allowed to do anything in this world. Everything was shut down, censored, blocked, stopped. But we are infinite source material when we connect to our souls, so we can always do new things. And that was the beautiful thing to see, that nothing they do, the authoritarian control structure, can actually stop us. So that became part of my message. And then, of course, just exploring this new relationship with this being, finding out everything I could. And my God, there's so much information I can get there. But looking at literally just the dynamics of what one human being with that kind of intention can start to affect. Because if you tap into one place in the earth and then you keep spreading it by just intention, and you start to see it moves along these lines. It's like a ripple effect. Now, if we just 100 of us did that, which is what is happening, it changes. And I got the whole kind of mechanics of what actually happens. The shift, it's like we shift an octave in energy because that release of energy comes through all the way up to the stratosphere. It pours through and the immediate atmosphere changes. So if you've got sleepy people in your village, but you've done some of that work, literally the spiritual awareness increases because the sadness, the heavy density has moved. So it was, it's like, finally, my energy can go somewhere. What am I doing here? I've got all this energy and this intention and clarity of purpose, and I've got intellect because I'm excited, but I couldn't do anything. And it's beautiful to at least see something. And of course, now I've just got to keep talking about it. And I've been encouraged very much to.
So do you think some of these places and ley lines and energy lines and above water energy and below drain, I call the drain effect energy, how the water changes, and we're meant to be our guided path of the source? Because it seems to me, and I only bring this up not to be some type of, I don't know. No, never mind that part of it. I have to laugh at myself here on that, but it makes me wonder if the whole thing behind the technology, the development of CERN, the opening of portals, the Pope getting ready to do the 3 knocks on the wall, all these things are them trying to break through a fabric to try to fight off and ward off the positive energies so they can intermingle with technology to try to destroy and displace our positivity. It's like there's the war's going in a different direction, even though it's in front of us and we're affected with it. There's also that source mechanism that they want to infiltrate, and because they know it's stronger and bigger than them, and they can't do it by man alone, where we have that ability of communication between source and us as a personal being. They need to do it as that. It's like they're running out of the last chess move on the board, and they must feel that there's something there that they can affect to change our timeline.
Yeah. This. I mean, Kerry Cassidy is one of those very brilliant describers of this. But there are several people who talk about these two parallel. Oh, like Ashiana Dean, of course, brought that the two parallel possibilities, but one being something that artificially is tried to be taken down or kept at a certain level, that those without soul access can continue to live. They can't die and reincarnate. They can't go back into source because they've gone so very far. So they want a world that they can still feel kind of comfortable, even if they're 7,000-year-old nasty bastards, basically. So they've done all they can to kind of artificially hold that. And so what do you do if you've got a being, which I thoroughly believe the earth is, and we're all living with her, and you know that if you put acupuncture needles in X, Y, and Z, you're going to make her weak. And that's what they've been doing. Let's slaughter thousands of people on these specific points over millennia. Keep it down. Keep building new things. Oh, the mighty, beautiful pyramids. They're not. They're really ugly methods of control, structure, and weight, all to keep this world in their realm. But they can't, because naturally, everything to do with the planet herself, her relationship to the sun, our relationship in the solar system, in the galaxy, in the entire universe is moving, because that's the inexorable expansion of source.
Right.
And so they're playing this losing game, but they're trying with every little tool that they've got, and yet they can't. It's their last hurrah. I mean, I don't know if they will succeed in taking something with them, creating something for themselves, because everything is freeing itself, cleaning itself. It might get dirty the next day, but we're not giving up, because more and more of us know it's an infinite source. Even if they chop your head off, your soul keeps going. So they actually can't win. And we're just at this weird, interesting tipping point where the natural expansion, the natural earth and her pores through all these sacred sites, is coming back into full energetic balance, equilibrium. The nasty acupuncture needles taken out, or the pus squeezed out, if you want to be really graphic about it.
Okay, yeah. That's all right. I get the strength in the statement. I do. Yeah. It makes it, and again, it makes sense too, and that brings into perspective of why they have the focus point and always had that focus point of go for the children first syndrome bullshit that they pull. Because if you can, depopulate, there's less to have to deal with. And maybe exactly that is part of how they see to attack and to destruct the positivity of humanity.
But it's not only numbers.
Born pure, correct?
Yeah, you're born pure. So I've got the pleasure of being a mama of 3 and grandma of 2, and being next to a baby is just heaven, because you are. That's the nearest being to heaven you're going to get. On the planet. The energy levels of children, that's why I've worked for years with them. It's just an honor. Huge. So if you take something that beautiful, exquisite, pure, and then you do something dreadful to it, and you inflict pain, torture, and entrapment, what have you done? You've turned that beautiful source of energy, again, you've twisted it around, which is what they were so good at doing, totally inverted and entrapped. So it's now that beautiful blossoming of a life, that energy in that person has become entrapped in a negative way. I mean, yuck. They were good at what they did. It was disgusting, despicable, but they knew what they were doing when they went for the children.
Yeah, from the earliest times in history,
Yeah.
And they led us to believe this was just a culture's way of thanking gods by sacrificing people or giving the firstborn. We hear and see so many things, and of course, people are going to have to digest the things the best they can, come and do the research, and then evaluate the situation for themselves. Otherwise, we just create a platform of this, where it becomes hard for people to connect, and we need to
That's
keep.
why it's so good. Sorry to interrupt there.
That's okay.
To show that there are processes, because we have imagination, through your imagination, mine, anyone else's is going to be slightly different. But if we use it and we use our connectivity to the purity of source and its power, we can find ways of neutralizing that, bringing back, taking the pain away, restoring, bringing these little pieces of tortured soul back into their full soul presence. We just felt like, I felt frustrated. We felt hopeless and helpless and overpowered. And now the shift is that we're starting to think, oh, I could. And it's not just crazy in my mind that I'm doing this. I can ask for some kind of sign that what I've done has had effect. That this heart movement of mine to want to heal something has actually brought something about. And that's what's exciting to spread. It's like, it's possible. There are ways.
Yeah, I think I lived part of that. I don't know to what extent I may have helped or changed the ether of the source, but I think just because we're here today as two people trying to share, our ideals and informations the best we can, furthers us on that in that path of how we keep source stronger above anything else, while they're trying to remain in that place. And we're seeing that all pan out right now, as you've been saying, and as I've been trying to, voice to the world in my own way too. Again, what did I do for it? I don't know, but I don't feel like I'm done. I still wake up feeling the energy to continue, through good and bad, sometimes not being able to go live. All these weird things happen, occurrences, power, all these weird things. They just happen, these synchronicities. But you know what? It makes us stronger through the pain. And we all know that. We know how those words, because words have power. And if you let the power in the words work in a positive manner for you, then I think that builds personal structure and creativity and strength, and that's why I do it. But I want you to take me somewhere else here, because you are now finding yourself getting closer to a source of information. Can you share anything directly that you feel is greatly important about where you are now and how you are digesting the source of and what needs to be shared? Is there anything like that right now that's really, really important?
Well, there are so many, but why don't we let's just dive into the drones thing, seeing as that is present. Because I was going to read, I've got a sort of selection of things that I could use, but it kind of works as a decent example of what we can be aware of and how to hold ourselves. Because I love what you were just saying. I just felt, I was thinking of how I perceive you through your quotes, on Facebook. And what I get from you is this soft clarity, knowing, holding space, which is what we need. That peace. People need some kind of sense of, there is some hope. My energy is not going to be wasted. There is something I can do. And so that kind of energy is not nothing. It's very important. So if I'm going to just read some of this is when I was asking my friend, I call her Elfie, and I was just talking to her yesterday about the drones. And I was saying, I'm thinking from all the things I've been picking up, these artificial drones seem to be, the story is that they're either spreading some radiative frequency, which is not healthful for humans. They're doing something, let's say, basically against humans. And they're investigating them, as in my friend, and her inner earth friends that we tend to call just ETs, aliens, but they're actually, as far as I'm concerned, on another dimensional layer, not too far away from ours, literally just an octave apart. That's why we're starting to see them a lot. So, and I said, you know, are you doing something to neutralize this? And she said, this is what she said, okay, neutralize it, yes. I'm not directly involved in this, of course, but we are cousins, as it were, of those busy people, her friends, you find in other places. Look across your maps of the secret so-called military bases. From some of these pieces of metal are being sent up, the drones, so these artificial ones. So I say that deliberately, just like the comment that I get, she was referring to, she called a certain book an accurate description of their people, and she calls computers black boxes for lots of reasons, because of the Saturn cube black box, the black box that control the way we get absorbed into our phones. So she said, and deliberately, I'm going to say that it is a kind of metal box. And yes, our ships are made of metal too, but just think of them being an octave higher, just like music. But what are we doing with them? Well, let me see if I can describe the process of neutralization that's happening. She says, imagine if there is an attractive force like a magnet that can hold on to something which is intent with moving in a certain direction, like an attraction beam, as you call it from your science fiction. So we move towards these metallic deep state drones, and we hold them in a sticky place. So they kind of latch onto them. We hold them, and then we shift with a kind of electromagnetic frequency blast. And that is a neutralizing of their electrical systems, a sort of frequency pulse. Do they drop out of the sky? No, she says. I'm not seeing that. It's more of a kind of a disintegration in the air. So these dark, I love this, the dark military are losing their expensive pieces of kit pretty rapidly. We won't allow them to populate the skies, she says. And why are we allowed to be seen? You ask, why have we risked being seen? Because the time is passing that way. Then they say, the Trump, we know him. We've worked with him and his people. Some of those people are us. And then there are telos beings, the so-called Nordics. Some of them are harsh and not very kind in their dealings with you, cold, interfering. And she refers then to Nazi Germany, how that was Nordics from inner earth interfering. And she talks then about how one set of values often gets pushed upon another set. We, the humans, being controlled by X, Y, Z, you know, the Nephilim, the reptilians, the Nordics, and it never works that way. So every time I talk with her, she's always talking about connection to your own soul, your own energy, and to awareness of nature. And then you have your sovereign being. Then you can make your decisions. So it always goes down to that. It's just humans, soul, nature. Get it sorted. That's what I keep.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty fascinating. Now, when we think of them as inner being, are there different multi-levels of dimensional inner beings? Because we are mentioning several here, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but just to give clarity out to people who may not want to follow, that should follow information like this, because everything is important. Nothing should be not looked with under. Turn over all the stones, get the informations. And you're saying that, you know, there are certain engagements already in process within Trump's cabinet, et cetera, and in Washington. They're doing the best they can to hold this at bay. Maybe they could just eliminate it, but maybe they're just toying with the presence of the negativity, just to let them know that, you know, don't overstep. We will, you know.
Well, there's so many. I'm sure you've found this, Michael, that, you know, you go and research and you find this name and this description for this group of beings, and then you find another name and it's like, I think they're kind of similar. And you find around the world there are many different names. You know, you've got the Dogon people in Africa talking about the Sirius star, and they have their characters and they've got little antennae. Then you've got the ant people throughout America, really, all the way up to Canada, down into Mexico. And it turns out that some people say they're insects, the ant people. Some people say they're humanoid with dreads that are twisted into antenna. You know, the American Indians talk about hair as antenna. Then you have people talking about the mantids and the insectoids. So you've got all these different descriptions floating around. Fairies, right? Me as a child always loved fairies, the idea of fairy and what it meant. I kind of knew it wasn't a sweet little girl with no shoes and wings. I kind of always knew it was something else, but that has a strong potency. So the question is, how do you fit these people together? How do you know who they are? Then you've got the other layers, the Nordics, these the people that of the thrill that Maria Orsic talked to. You know, we have these many stories of the secret Nazi breakaway civilization down in Antarctica, funded, created, directed by the Nordics. We've got all kinds of levels with lots of Galactic Federation channelers talk to Nordic beings, you know, their commanders. Look, it's the classic Pleiadian look, you know, the blonde hair, blue eyes. Look, so we know we've got all these different levels. You've got Radu Cinema talking about inner Earth civilizations on different dimensions. So we have to start mapping it. We just got to, you know, and there's going to be loads and loads of overlap. But unless we ask the questions, so I've been asking lots of questions. It looks like Fae and ant people are kind of one and the same. Okay. But what do fairies do? What did the ant people do? And you have to look at the stories, and then you have to talk to these beings and get information, and then come across the very few people like JP, Dr. Michael Sala, who JP has got one of those strange, interesting genetic heritages, like another guy, Cesar, in the Radu Cinema books. They're able to, with their physical body, move through dimensions, dimensional locks, which most humans can't do. But when I go and look with psychic friends, we have come across this barrier, this sort of octave dimensional barrier. It's like a blue and then a green light. And you have to somehow find a way to penetrate that with your mind in order to move into that space. Right. So we're at the edge. I mean, I've been looking at this for the last 20 years, this particular thing of inner Earth.
Right.
But I know less than a fingertip, you know, because we've got so much mis and disinformation, but we have to start asking and researching and receiving and questioning, and where does this information come from? Test it out.
Right. And it makes perfect sense. You know, you brought up something about physical and non-physical in a way. I may have, because I'm trying to absorb as much as I can, as fast as I can here. You know, once upon a time, like I told you, I think prior to us going live, you know, I was telling you about how I wake up. I just intuitively know it comes out before I in some ways, even think the thought. Like now AI is reminding me, are you sure you want to post this? And it's like they're thinking ahead of me, before me, and my mind's almost working the same way. But in some dreams, I was able to do the physical of the unphysical possibility, where in that time in mind, where I could record, write down, wake up, and because to me, writing down everything of my awareness during sleep time, I was able to actually stick my head through a wall and look down a hallway. I was doing things like this from the other side of something, of the source that gives me these thoughts or experiences. I don't know. And I just wanted to share that part with you, because I kind of get what you mean. And in the dream part of that, you can actually feel the physical component against you as you kind of like, whoop, and take that look down the hall that would never be able to do with our physical abilities or structure within the matrix of this whole source thing. So that blows my mind. But going back further, even, you explained history in its own way, in a good way. And like the Dogon, I mean, what were they doing? They were making pottery to represent who they were in contact with. We've seen examples of things like that occurring and reoccurring. And I think that's how we are collectively collecting some of the informations, because they say the source is a pottery. Graham Hancock might be one who would state that. But then there are the others. And I find this really fascinating. And this may not be exactly what we're talking about, but the catastrophical geologies, the catastrophic occurrences, because we can only see and LIDAR so far down. But I think there's other answers underneath the pottery, but we just haven't gotten to all that yet, that gives us some of these other answers.
And it does seem to be, doesn't it, the more we kind of look, that there was the sweet humans growing, developing, and there was always some other race, whether it was the Elohim who came in, apparently, the commander of that ship was said to be Enki. But there are loads of stories about what Enki and Enlil are. But so anyway, they came in, saw the planet, thought, oh, interesting. Let's fiddle around with the genes and let's create these humans. So you got the kind of Sasquatchy guys, then you got the humans, and then these people, the controllers. And then, oh, nothing of that worked several thousand years later. Let's scrap it, tabula rasa, let's start again. Or you had a new lot of people come in and try and take over. And the humans, because we were the sweetest with these little cute souls, not really conniving, not really dire and nasty and manipulative, always the ones to be just like, whoop, gone, hidden under a layer of rock or soil or water, starting all over again. So yeah. The history is in the pottery. But there were always this thing. And it's now like we've had enough incarnations. There are enough of us with memory from being X, Y, and Z. Maybe some of us were the Elohim or the reptilians or the whatevers. And we're coming in. It's like, oh, okay, we don't want this hierarchical system anymore, the two-tiered thing, the controllers and the little people. Let's see what happens. And that seems to be where we kind of are.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Especially when you look at how we find things and the commonalities between certain things that have happened, the events and geological changes. All these things all seem to have a certain pattern within, but people are just not reaching into the fabric of that information enough to bring it in, because I really think people need to participate further within that. And your work and how you're sharing your commentary is definitely going to open up a lot of people's minds. I like your path. It's really interesting and intriguing how you yourself are presenting yourself with the information. It's very enlightening to me. It really is. It makes me wonder, but not so much wonder, and but it does. Like Göbekli Tepe, these cover-overs, these events, they are also, in my mind, part of a man-made almost occurrence just to suppress, for us to stay further from the reach of the truth.
Yeah, it does make sense. One thing that I got again in this conversation just from yesterday, the more we're used to talking about Gaia, the earth as Gaia. We've used this name, that was Lovecraft, wasn't it? Who brought that, Lovegood, sorry. Yeah. Who brought that in. And it's like, yeah, but what does that mean? Can we feel it? What's the experience? And so I want to drill down a lot more. And I've had several conversations just with the essence of Earth, just to feel and experience her. And very often she was very sleepy, and she's really not. She's getting much more awake. But the image I was given yesterday, which I loved so much, they were just giving me, again, this is Elfie who I was talking to, analogy of look at the planet in a different way. So when you talk about catastrophes and the geological structures and looking into the history of the geology and these civilizations which rose and fell and covered over, look instead of thinking rock, think body. Look at the earth in a different way. If you started to perceive her, because I was asking about, okay, if you've got big caverns, if you're living under the surface, what's your sun like? What's the sky like? So they were sort of saying, okay, well, look with us, have a look and see what you can see. And it's a projected sky. They borrow literally our sky and they project it because they're able to do that. Huge caverns within the earth, but it's not like the earth we know. It's not this cute little ball with a hard iron core. We have to start to find out what she actually is. And if we see it as a body to start with, we can start asking very different questions. We're bodies. We're huge spirits packed some of it into a body. If we start to think of it like that, huge realms of dimensional perceptive possibility open for us. We're no longer confined to what we can touch in this dimension. We start to see that, the earth's got a spirit. How does that look? I've got an aura as well as a body. How does that look?
But is the spirit using technology? Because you expressed that in one way they have the ability to present what we have on the beautiful side of the upper earth on the land, projected down below. So are they actually the terminology of Lilith, and the children are the Alice of what the technology works around through the spirituality?
Yeah, I mean, we're used to saying spirituality is something it's the stuff we can't see, which is true because we don't yet know how to see a thought. Sometimes I see people have sparks when they have a thought. It's like, did you just think something? It's like, yeah, how did you know? Because I saw a spark. Okay, so sometimes we can see the invisible. So we're always thinking spirit is just this vague thing. It's just we haven't learned to see it yet with our eyes. We're starting to learn to feel it. So spirit and technology don't have to be divorced. But again, we've been entrapped by this AI, which is another of these governing authorities trying to hold us in this negative world, that technology is devoid of spirit and technology is separate of spirit, which it is in the way it's being played out right now. But for these guys on the inner earth, they have computers, but they're organic. It's like we've heard about those sentient aircraft. Remember some of those early Kerry Cassidy whistleblowers talking about only a few people could come in those seats and move the planes, or also the inner earth, those chairs, which were used terribly badly in Montauk for time travel. But in other words, you have to use your consciousness interacting with a kind of sentient.
Yeah, they gave life. They gave life in a way that people can't fathom, that works between us and that highly advanced mechanism. I mean, it's almost hard. People will find creative ways and words better than I will. There's much better out there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Just in thought and transfer, it becomes one with the pilots. And I wonder if that's also some of how everything we look at is working as well. Because if they can bring it to the from below, from under the water, from underground, whatever you want to call it, Agarthia, all these mystical places of wonder that, like Brad Olson, I don't know if he was joking when he put a post up yesterday. I just want to say this because Brad will listen in time to time. Hello, Brad, my friend. Love you. I hope you're skiing, but I think at Antarctica, because I think he was taking a plane. I'm not sure. He likes to play. He likes to play and toy with everybody. Where am I now kind of thing. Like, where's Carmen Sandiego? And I find him fascinating the way he's all over the place. But he's a very charming man, a good soul, and a great supporter to America Disclosing and Oracle Talk Radio. I just love him to death. But yeah, when you get into all these things, how do we find balance for people just coming on board? Where's a good place for a party to start in the balance sequence to be able to open themselves to the resource?
I love that, because what was coming through my mind during everything you said fits so perfectly to that. We've been conditioned currently to believe that we are beholden to technology. It's a separate thing from us. It's designed by them. Somehow we know it's manipulative. There are lots of lies about it, but it's designed to keep us in a very narrow way of living. Mm-hmm. So even though we want it, we're hypnotized by it, seduced by it, we also know it's not good. And we're also made to feel helpless with the tech. However, if we just come to a place of questioning, so I've got a soul and I've got a spirit. I don't know what that is. Wonder what it is. Let's see if I can work it out. Let's do some little challenges, some little games, some little tests. If I do this, does something else happen? We have to start empowering ourselves, which just means moving away from, I am helpless, I am frustrated, I am enclosed in technology in a box, that's the only way I can survive, to, I wonder if there's some other kind of tech. If the spirit that's animating my body has some kind of information, if there is some sort of, if I want to know something, I can find out. Oh, isn't that funny? There are lots of remote viewers suddenly around the planet. I wonder what that is.
Yeah, me too.
People accessing information that's not in their head or not in their computer. Interesting. And they need to start questioning and putting it together. Remote viewing is the ability of the soul to access anything, go anywhere from your sitting room. You do not need Google. Google's not working very well anyway.
None of them are. Yeah, correct.
So it's just that point of, instead of being subject to control and it's the end of days and they are doing all of this, it's like, hang on a moment, how come I'm still breathing here? How come I made choices that didn't cause me to die in the last 5 years? How come when I do this, I feel a bit happy? We've got to start to get our tools back. What makes me feel alive? How can I feel powerful? Ooh, how can I test this and just keep expanding piece by piece? For me, I use my voice because I've always loved to sing. It might be something else. It might be, I love to write, I love to draw. Whatever it is, test it and start asking questions. And the biggest thing you've got to do is presume something. The what if game. What if?
Love it.
What if God's source is infinite? What if, yeah, well, something had to create everything. What if I'm part of that? What if I align with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we just remain lost in how we need to understand the beginning of source. And I say in one way is just let it be, just remove it and go with the information that you have in front of you, because it may not be the most important part of how we rebuild and fix the problems of what source has created for us. We can look at that maybe at another time, or maybe on another timeline. Otherwise, we would probably know more. We may never know more. We may always be making the assumption to things, and that will continue, where somebody needs to, deep dive more into a string theory and try to develop a different pattern of who was right and who was wrong. And I think from what you have been taught and what information you have been receiving, it seems like there is a focus, a path given to you that was like, what was going on now is the most important part of everything.
It's like culmination, isn't it? It's like all
Yeah.
the stuff that was hidden. People have then spent the last 30 years finding it, digging it up. It's a bit of a mess. It's a messy jigsaw puzzle right now, but we're now laying it out on the table and we're starting.
Can I show you my jigsaw puzzle?
Yes, show
Let
me.
me show it to you.
Yeah. I nearly bought a jigsaw puzzle yesterday. There was something about it. That's your jigsaw puzzle.
This is mine, and it's immense. There's an equivalent to probably, I thought it was 9, but I think it's more like 12 books that I've done, but I just don't know if my story's over to start a path there. I don't know why, but again, it's one finding itself, and nothing yet has spoke to me in the way where it says it's now. Because I told you, I wake up, I already know before I know in some way. And it's not every day, but it happens time and time again. It really does. And I'm trying to get that focus point. And I even have more. It's laying everywhere around me. I mean, every day is research. Every day is combining all the efforts of everything to guide myself further for my journey, for the purpose of my journey.
You said something at the beginning, Michael. You said that almost always these really difficult moments in our life are what make us stronger. Mm-hmm. And that is the paradigm. I mean, it's weird. It's horrible. It's horrible when you're in the difficulty, the tragic moments. It's just, soul destroyingly awful to witness in someone else or experience it. But the truth is, yes, it does make us stronger. Yeah. But that is maybe that's an old paradigm. And what would the new paradigm be? Instead of having to suffer, in order to unfold. And you and I've got my sketchbooks instead. I just keep churning them out. I've got my books, keep putting them in. It just goes on and on. And it's too much stuff as well. But
Yeah.
maybe it's because every part of that energy output and exploration makes us right now, so that 3 people listening to your conversation suddenly goes ping, 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 and they start something. And that's all it needs. It's like ripples of change until we create something different, because enough people have tipped it over into the new paradigm. The new paradigm, as far as I'm concerned, should be joy. That's the thing that starts everything off. And we've had suffering, sacrifice and suffering. And the new one, as far as I'm concerned, should be from the point of joy, excitement, enthusiasm. But that's where we're kind of shifting to. So sometimes your puzzle only makes sense years down the road, or because it brings you to now.
Yeah. And you're bringing it up at a perfect time. I mean, when you look at the holiday in front of us coming up, that a lot of people celebrate, that is a focus point of light and positivity. And I understand that there's a different structure out there. But again, it's always more overwhelming because you can see an inspirational mood change. And that's, it started November 5th in America. And that was like the smoking gun where of, hey, let's get this thing started. And it is started. And then they show then the evil shows itself again. So wherever there's goodness, evil infiltrates it somewhere and sits within it. But that doesn't mean that we cannot spiritually, as well as physically and emotionally, address these scenarios as you presented today. And that's, I think, very enlightening. You have a really good focus on how you direct yourself in your conversation. I love it. I really do. You're a very strong, independent woman. I can tell that. And I'm sorry it's taken us so long to get together. I enjoy things like this.
I've been forging myself through fire the last 2 years. If you will eventually meet my beloved man, who I can't tell you who that is, but you'll understand why I'm this strong as a result.
Is he standing next to you? Because you seem
no, he's in your country. He's in your country, but because I couldn't.
Oh, okay.
Because I couldn't.
Would I know him?
Yeah, you will.
Oh, okay.
So I've had to just sort of be without him and just find my way and unfold on my own through my pains.
Mm-hmm.
And it just is kind of, I've become stronger. You had that thing about Christmas that my little beautiful 3.5-year-old granddaughter.
Yes, I wanted to bring, that's kind of like why I was focusing that. I remember what you wrote.
Yeah. So
I'm like a Sheldon from Big Bang. I don't.
Yeah, it just comes in beautiful curves. You're a good spiralist. So she, as soon as I told her about Elfie, Grandma's seen a fairy, she obviously felt the resonance of truth within my words. And 5 minutes later was sitting drawing a fairy. The next week, because I see her every week on FaceTime, she lives in Berlin. And she said, Grandma, how is it that you can see fairies? And I said, well, it's because I put my focus there. I want to, and then I do all I can to let it happen. So she liked that idea. So she keeps coming forth with ideas. And I wrote her a little story with Elfie. So we got the last question yesterday morning. What do they celebrate Christmas? What do they do for Christmas? Do they have a Christmas tree and biscuits? And so I thought, probably not. So I went and chatted with Elfie. And what I loved was that I found something that they did do, which is beyond religious dogma. We know that Christmas is really Saturnalia. It's not really about beloved Christ being born. It's something else, but it's all kinds of festivals mixed into one. Ultimately, in the positive, it's celebration of love and humanity being together. So I found out this story that, yes, they do, not necessarily at that time of year, but throughout times they celebrate. It's a gift of giving, where groups of them will focus on one person's wish, vision, idea, desire. It's like imagine having 30 people all focused on the fulfillment of your desire. And that's their gift of giving. And it's celebrated as an event. And so, do they have biscuits? Yes, they do have biscuits. But to bring home this she could perceive I was receiving something, and to bring it to a beautiful 3.5-year-old who knows there's something sparkly in there. She wants to find out, and she's doing her best to fit it into the sparkles she knows exist in her world. And that's how we transform out of old controlling paradigms into building something beautiful and new. We have to test it for its joy factor, its truth factor. So I love that.
I do too. I really do. And I think it's inspirational what you just said. And people need to, accept that and let that be a path through their holiday, because we can now have another Merry Christmas again without being told it has to be only a happy holiday. And one of the fascinating things is, I don't know if you're aware of this, and I only learned of it, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or so. And I think it's this year where and Christmas will also align on the same day with Hanukkah. And I think, as you were just saying, and you were saying spiraling, and I can bring things in from one place to another, you have also right here, because it's an interesting fact. And I think if anybody wants to research it, please post if I'm wrong. And you know what? I'm not seeing all my comments from where we are. That's just, part of the facade of life, I guess, for myself. So I can't really address very much today as far as people's comments, but I do want to just register out this message out to all you. I want you all to have a great and Merry Christmas. And if you didn't hear all of the content of today's show, I think I asked some really good questions. I think she has given us so much information here. It's just been magnificent. And also, if any disappointment comes, you couldn't be any more disappointed than probably the way my guest feels and I feel about Maria being stuck in London, not having a way to get out to come on to do a show. But we will get her back. And at the end of the storyline here today, I have a message I'm going to play from Johnny Enoch. I want you to keep these things in mind. Some of the understandings and mythical things that you might think are mythical, but may actually be fact. But it's all amazingly, to me, of importance, to where we have something and structure of great people who focus the way we do to be creative enough to analyze things that self-explain it better for the ones who do not know, but are ready to understand and learn. It's hard to put good words together when you're thinking, how do I get through this little part here? So where would you like to go from here? We covered your family a little bit, and you told me something I was not aware of at all. And I want to say Merry Christmas to your partner then.
Okay. I'll pass it on.
And your family, to you. I don't want to leave that out anywhere. How would you like to continue? We have a little bit more time, if you don't mind, if you're up for it. What do you feel like?
I'm just looking through what I wrote down from my conversation with Elfie yesterday to see if there is something that's kind of throwing itself out at me. Just because we've covered, as you said, a lot.
I do have a question that just popped up for you that I am able to see. I think I'm only getting limited amount of information today. It's sad. I wish I could do you guys better. This comes from James Wigington, and James, I know who he is, and he's a researcher. And he says, "Doctor, let me ask, would twinkling lights up in trees be the fairies or something else?"
Okay, that's a really nice question, because I went on the Jeff Murrah podcast 10 days ago with just some photos of my fae being. At the time, I was just calling her a fairy because I hadn't done any more work to find out who she is. Now I'm just calling her an earth being. So these photos were there, and I explained how when it had appeared, it was just, as I said, its little point of turquoise light in the sky. Oh, look, there's an orb. So as a result of that show, lots of people contacted me, and I'm also on an orb Facebook group, which I've just got much more involved in, because now, having looked at my footage of who Elfie is and what she looks like, she rides what I now call a sky bike. Okay, I have looked at hundreds of stills now, from my various footage with her, and it is definitely a bike that flies. Okay. So I then was sent all these images from other people. I said, look, I'll slow it down and have a look. Or I'd see something, think, I want to look at that in more detail. Now, most of these are just horribly unfocused, just like mine, because, I shot it with my little 5S iPhone. Most people are doing that. And yet I'm starting to see images from pattern recognition of looking at hundreds of images. So the answer, long-winded, is yes, probably those are beings. I've seen two different kinds. I've seen people like me, the Elfie friends, these inner earth beings. And I've also had a conversation, which was bizarre, with, he said he was a little gray. And he said he's not on the material realm. They work between bringing energy into the material matrix framework. So they kind of putting things into the molecular reality. That seems to be where they work. And I was puzzled because I saw same kind of, these little blips in the sky, the twinkle in the shrub, in the bush, but then analyzed it. And I was seeing a technological patterning, like 3 dots and 2 dots there, always a kind of regular technological patterning. And I thought, that's so bizarre. So I must contact this being and ask. And I got, it's one of my videos on the Heavenly Tea channel, this conversation I had with him. But he said, it's like we're looking through a telescope at you from a distance because we're curious, what you guys are doing. And the fact that the kind of work I was doing, again, they're just curious to know what's going on. And he used this brilliant analogy of, when you've got a shoe and you've got shoelaces and they come through a hole. So he said, it's like that. When you see us, we're like the popping through the hole of the shoelace coming through the hole. So what you're seeing is not only us, because very often when you zoom out on these images, you get these weird technological frameworks of dots or regularity, some kind of geometric structure, and a face. In my case, there was this rather beautiful Roman-nosed face on the side of it. And he said, this is because we're peeking through this telescope via this technological access to you. So that's why you're seeing the technology and our faces. So that's one group of entity.
Could they possibly be somewhere else? But at the same time, they are able to observe us in a closeness using that type of telescope? Or do you think that the entity is actually in that same time and space?
Yeah, space-time, that's interesting, isn't it? It's because I don't know about you, but I bet you are like this too, Michael. If I walked through a churchyard, usually I'd end up with some kind of ghost hovering around me, and I'd have to kind of sort them out. So I used to have that a lot. So where does that ghost live? Most people are not seeing it. The occasional dog will bark at it. So somehow that ghost is walking around in our dimensionality, but we just can't see it, just slightly out of phase. How many other things are slightly out of phase?
Yes.
So that's what these Fey beings, the inner earth beings, were saying. You're going to see a lot more of us because as the earth energy increases, that lock of dimension is easier to traverse. And that's why we're seeing lots more of them. Our energy of the planet is heightened. But I think there are different mechanisms at work. It's not just the one. We always have to look out for that.
Yeah. And I think everybody's experiences are explaining a lot. But it does make me wonder when we learn about some of the actions that are coming through the Vatican and celebrations that are now being announced, opening 5 portals Christmas Eve, is it to help these others that we sometimes experience to get in here more for purposes for them, not because in many ways if something like that it would be War of the Worlds all over again. Like everybody talks about that fantastic once in a lifetime hearing Orson Welles talk about they're here, the aliens, or that conjecture kind of thing. But yeah,
I get an image when you say that. Shall I just share it?
What do you get?
So when you were saying that, imagine if our Earth is floating upwards. Let's just sort of imagine this. It's floating upwards, this ascension dynamic. The energy is inexorably floating upwards. So what does the Vatican need to do? They want their power control system because of who they have aligned themselves to. So they open the trapdoor and this big brute who's super heavy comes out, a whole bunch of them. And they're going to weigh it down, push it down, because they don't want the Earth to float up to where it's no longer accessible. So that's what it seems to be like. You know, they're trying to get the super heavy, negative, inverted essences coming through and holding us down. But I don't think they're going to succeed.
Yeah. Well, as many times we've seen where they don't succeed, they come out with a new and something else takes the effect. That's the war of the psyop and pressures that they want to put on humanity. Because again, because one thing doesn't work, doesn't mean they don't have something pending to come. Everything seems to have, in ways, always come premeditated. And many of us hear a significance of statement like they have to tell you before it happens. I do believe that that is factually true because, again, something else when I'm referring back to before you reminded me that we needed to hit the live button, and I apologize for that. We were already going into context in ways when you see things 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and I'm sorry about these indicators coming up. There's some people sharing, but not only that, there are a lot of my groups because I have over 100 groups on Facebook and throughout. And then they list and post stuff, and it's like bing, bing. They got to share one item to 100 groups, and it's all the same thing. So anyway, it's hard to congregate us all together and keep us as one. Everybody gets in ways interested more in the name than the fact that the information can be just found in one place. So they'll go for this sounds cool. I'm going to go there. So coldness has to be part of the equation. I apologize for what I've created.
So let me bring something in then, because you said, just like we know from The Simpsons or all of these prediction things, the Illuminati cards, whatever, they have to tell us. And what I see, because I like to troll through Facebook and look, kind of take a grab shot, big screenshot of what's going on in people's minds, looking at what they're saying on their posts. And very often people, again, it's like, oh, they're doing this to us. This is going to happen. They're giving the power to that so-called premeditated event. Mm-hmm. Now, I've taught improvisation for the last 17 years with children. Dyslexic children mostly were my students. And very low self-esteem, because if you're dyslexic in a smart school, you feel stupid because you're getting an E or an F, not an A or a B. And my improvisation was allowing them to try something, be something different, trust themselves. So over 17 years, trusting the imagination is a fascinating training tool. It means that if the Illuminati cards say, this is what's going to happen, and the Simpsons say, this is what I just say, well, you think so, but you don't have a soul. You've had to plan that 250 years in advance. I can stand here in connection with my soul, receive anything. This is what we got to remember. If anyone gets anything from this conversation I've got with you, it's that we need to decide where we're plugging ourselves into. Because no matter what agenda, they're too stupid. They have to plan out because they don't have innovation. They don't have intuition. They don't have receiving from infinite source. We can create new ideas every time, no matter what they pop up. Always a new idea, a new idea, a new idea.
Yeah, to me, they're lacking the instrument of what it is to be a natural human. They don't have it. And that's the part. They would probably, if they did have it and they did understand it, as we see the same analogy when AI says you're in violation for something you said, but they don't understand that it was actually a joke.
Yeah.
They punish you for what, because it's instrumental to remember this, and everybody should remember that example, what I just said. That's part of why they fail. They'll never have that natural component that we have from source ourselves.
And the AI, you just think of the censorship. I don't know if you've been through this process, but I have, where I've put something wonderful, I put lots of energy into it. I put it out maybe 3 different ways, and echo chamber, nothing has come back, because I'm now on the censorship list because they didn't like something I posted 3 months ago. And most people, the way we've been trained is, I'll cry and I'll go in a corner and I'll just hide and avoid that again, because that's how we've been trained. Here, I smack you, so you're not going to do that again. But actually, the spirit is so brilliantly cheeky, wonderful. It says, what? You AI think you're going to limit me? Are you kidding? I'll just start all over again, slightly different. And that's what I do. I just tweak my own mental algorithm and say, okay, well, I'll just do this. I'll expect something different. And I go ahead and another new path opens, because that's what spirit does that AI can never do.
Exactly. And, that's why there's always failure, even though it might be able to resolve to go on to a new answer or a new form of delivery of whatever will cause humanity to be disrupted again. They never finish what they start. And I think humanity is at the point where we're getting it. They're never going to be us. They want to be us. They want to look like you. They want to look like me. They want to be beautiful, but they're not. Evil is ugly, and that's all there is to it.
So in the past, they just smashed us down, and that was the mud flood or the flood or whatever it was. And now with this idea, even if it's only an idea that we're in a new Kali Yuga and it's the age of Aquarius, who cares whether it's in reality or not? Because ideas have power. So let's take that idea and run with it and say, no, this is now our time. Yeah. This is our time. Personally, the amount of heartache I have had in the last 2 years and the amount of joy has been crazy, huge on both sides. I wasn't sure I was going to survive those, but I did.
Yeah.
And that's surprising and delighting.
Yes. And we will, because as sophisticated as everything is, and the mystery of why they keep going in the direction of the quantum and the AI and the new Willow project at Google, where they claim they get answers that's not even within the vocabulary or within any dictionary or within any book of law, and it can find it somewhere in the mystery zone and bring it in. They still fail. No matter what they do, they're either the superiorness does not have the intellectual ability to digest and accept. Again, it's the missing form. It's something only a human being will ever be able to do. Or
even the I love that when you said the superiorness, because it's that idea of our pride. And we can have pride, we can be proud.
Oh yeah.
The beautiful thing about a crazy, wonderful human is that yes, we can be proud and we can be vulnerable. We can be appalled at ourselves and congratulatory. We can shift. Whereas something like an AI, when it gets proud, it's going to just stay on that trajectory. We have that weird, amazing ability to listen to the tiny little impulse of a soul that just shifts us. And then we're sort of, oh, I apologize. I was slightly off there. I was out there. I did that wrong. I'm sorry. I'll do it differently, without chastising ourselves or crushing ourselves, but that ability to shift through the emotions, to be flexible and like liquid. That stuff just doesn't have it.
Exactly. And that's what we need to remember, especially, and it's fast. It's Christmas, right? Maybe a good but bad example is you don't have to be Scrooge when you're out there because there's a long line or someone in front of you is taking long. Just accept, be willing to understand that you're all going to have your moment to celebrate It's at the end. It's like a guy who wants to get around you. He's in such a hurry, and the only place he got to was the next red light where you pull up next to him, and he got no further in the game anyway.
And those moments these days, if I get someone like that, you just know they're an idiot, sort of longing for their own death, aren't they? If they're a crazy guy in traffic. So again, I use my ingenuity, my imagination, and I create this thing of what his energy is going to do for him. And it will, I kind of like in my mind, I'll gather it around him and I'll give him a little slap back on the shoulder to wake him up. Or, in other words, before I would have just had to deal with my own emotion. How do I feel about this idiot in traffic?
Right.
How do I feel about its knock-on effect on me? And now I'm much more creative and proactive. And I'm doing something with just my perception of his energy, but it's still on the quantum realm. I am interfacing with him, but not in a purgatory way, not in a victim way. More, let's take that energy you've created. Let's do something really creative. So you've got a learning experience out of this, and you're not going to hurt anyone else. That's a different perspective. And the more we use that beautiful imagination and creativity, it's invisible to almost everybody. But if we start to trust it just a tiny, tiny bit more, you see the blossoming. Like here I am chatting with you because of that, and I didn't know you. I knew you through your lovely posts. That's how it works, how it brings more expansion, because we're just trusting this soul that we haven't allowed ourselves to quite enough yet. And it's like, this is the age now, the blossom of it. Nice time to try it out at Christmas.
Yeah, and I think that's why I try to navigate myself to protect their own irresponsibilities and stupidities. If I get them to the red light, it's because I'm probably saving them from something, and they'll never understand my mindset for doing that. But instead of fighting it and being a party to it, I protect them from it. And that's the way I look at it. And I don't know if my positive outlook and how it's changed through life to do these things, but I let that be my path and my focus. That's just who I've turned out to be. And I think it's for a better, and I say that. Also want to just bring this up. Jack Warren, really great guy out there. He loves Bigfoot, by the way. And I don't have anything against that. We've even mentioned Bigfoot here, just momentarily, but for a moment we did. Love the bits and pieces you both share with us. Yes, I am thinking about rising my vibration. Thank you. And I think we all should just, try to wake up, be positive. Even if it's making breakfast for, your partner, or making the bed before they walk back in the room, and they're like, wow, how nice is this? Do and go the extra step in life and watch how everything turns around. And I think if the world gets a little bit more involved with all these little instrumental things that one may think don't mean a thing, you may look at life a little bit different when you see the change it can bring.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. I try to put that into my writings and books. I hope one day my kids will do something with them. I probably never will. I will, but I won't.
Do you know, my great uncle published these books in the 20s, I think, because he died in the late 30s. He was a famous artist in Britain, and he made these books called Aha and Oho. I think you can still find them here and there. They were republished, and they were faces that you read one way, but you turn the book around and you had another face. So you'd have a happy face and a sad face or whatever, this whole book. But what you just said there with, this is the trick. It's changing our perception that making breakfast for your partner is the joy, it's the beauty, it's not the chore. It's a massive difference. If you make your book like that somehow, like Brian Froud's Fairies books is like that, where you turn it around.
And there's even paintings out there to depict what you're saying in ways. I can't remember if it was the Mona Lisa or what, but if you put it into the mirror and it reflects a certain way, it turns her face into an alien. It's really fascinating. You would never think it's there, but this is how I think messages in art and influences in art comes from the source.
Yeah.
How can man, in ways, if we think about it, create such disparity and, unwanted things? It's because they have a negative guidance, and you know, they believe it's something we don't, but we're always going to be stronger. At the end of the outlook, we will.
This mass hypnosis that we are not only to be living as little slaves eating our insects and living in a tiny home, you know, the Klaus Schwab's friends, and powerless and frustrated. That is so the opposite of us. It's just, that's the thing when people say self-love, you must love yourself. The loving is to find out that this infinite creation we always saw God did. You know, God always did a new thing in the Bible, in the Quran. God created new things all the time. It's like, that's not working. Let's create a new thing, a new day, you know, new thing. Yes. And we've forgotten that we're allowed to be that and this imagination. And I just keep saying this again and again in so many ways. But when I was working with the Hurricane Milton, and I know lots of my friends around the world were doing this in their way, and that all of us together brought that storm down from the 6 to the 1 category. And so when I was talking to the weather in my mind, going for a walk in my village, 5 minutes later, hello, there's an exquisite face in the clouds, because this is the power of our imagination. It's just, you know, it's nuts. It's like you can have a painting that reads one way and there's something else hidden because that important information needed to come through. If I'm talking to inner earth beings or elementals and I'm just relaxing in the evening, painting, not anything in particular, just painting color, 2 days later when I start to model that painting a little bit further, I realize, oh, I just painted Elfie's sky bike. You know, you find out these things later, because the imagination and this source energy that flows is just a constant river that we just forgotten is ours, and it's serious and it's real, and it's more real than having gold in the bank or on your desk or having 2,000 computers or a secure job, because there's nothing secure. That's all held still in the old system, the old authoritarian cabal system.
Yes. This
new reality is all completely flexible, but it's powered by imaginative moments and leaps. Yeah, it's just.
Would one reflect to that as self-manifestation also? Would that kind of analyze it as well, where one's abilities of thought are actually producing and it self-creates?
Yeah, but I don't know whether you found this, but I found that, you know, using the Abraham Hicks formulae or whatever, if I wanted money and I thought about money, I always got the opposite because of what I'd experienced. So if I wanted to turn my entire body inside out, which is not really going to work to keep me healthy, I could have maybe got rid of those patterns from the womb and probably beyond of money. So using these formula don't always work, because there are some things that it's almost impossible to eradicate. But if I use the manifestation principles of, I know I'm an infinite source being and I can have whatever I want, I just don't know how I'm going to get it, or it doesn't need to come through money, or it can come in unexpected ways, or you basically open the floodgates to all kinds of other ways what you want.
Negative and positive possibility outcomes.
Yeah. Or you want love, and it might just be that it, you know, you can't have the love with your beloved partner, that physical love, so you're going to have to find another way of love. Or you know, a cat came to me, for goodness sake. I said I'd never keep animals because I think that's bizarre to give them tins of food, and you know, they should be wild. But this cat came to live with me. She climbed in through my window and stayed there, and thank God she did. You know, she's been a wonderful friend for me. So this thing of manifestation, there are lots of formulas, and there are plenty of adverts on Rumble telling you, you're doing it all wrong, you know. and I think
Rumble knows best.
Yeah, Rumble knows best, or that British guy saying that knows best, obviously. But this thing of God force, source, is just a bigger deal than we've known, because it's much more fun. It's wilder. It's a wilder ride. It's nature pure. It's unexpected. I didn't know I was going to go and see a bloody fairy in the sky. You know, it was like, what? I was just jaw dropped when I saw the footage. So it was exciting and thrilling and nonsensical and brilliant. And each little decision I've made in the last year has been like that. I mean, everyone, if they really knew the story with my beloved man, they'd think I was nuts, probably. But time will show it to be somewhat different. So when you move from operating in the old paradigm of I must have this and must have that, and the Simpsons thing is going to come true, and this will happen and that will happen. As soon as you step out of that into, ooh, there's something else here. I'm a source-centered being. I'm made of energy. Everything is so magically, wonderfully strange and extraordinary. And most of us long for that kind of magical, mystical tour.
Yeah, I would agree. But, again, we've been conditioned to understand that we need these things too. But if you allow them naturally, I think they solve, I want to say appear, but wrong word, but the word, I guess, the only one I can come up with this in this moment. But they do. It does happen. Things do happen. And sometimes it goes back to the old saying, you'll see it even in Christmas movies, maybe less is more is less on that, me making that statement. But things happen for a reason, I guess is the best way to put it. And just to look at this here, we're coming up on right now and that moment of time of where I have to, not say was happy to have you here, but I really was. I was ecstatic. You gave a lot of support for a show that was failing in a way, and you brought it to light in a good way. Could I ask you at this time to share how more people can learn about your work? I know you have a Facebook page. I don't know what your numbers are up to, but I know you do post some of the interviews. Would you like to give some details out to anybody that's watching?
Sure, I have, so my Facebook, you can reach me, but I use Linktree these days, so I can have lots of different places. But you'll also find me on Gnostic TV. I've started to work with them, and eventually we're going to be building a university, Gnostic University.
Oh,
so I'm very excited about that. And I've got 2 courses on there. One is how you use your voice to create these different situations in your life, using the voice as this raw power. And the other one is basically taking all my wisdom from the past into a course of getting you connected to nature, called Living as Medicine. So that's a good place to find me. So you can find me under my name there, or under New Earth Mamas on Gnostic. I've got a show on Rumble called The Heavenly Tea, because I like the idea of just like we had, it's just, here's my mug of tea, taking a pause.
Just chilling out. Is this just like chilling out with friends, or?
Oh, yeah, to talk about the things that most human beings perhaps don't, but this is my kind of tea, my kind of heavenly tea.
Gotcha.
So this is like a classic, the heavenly tea conversation. I do a lot of healing work and investigative work there, where I just kind of do remote viewing and all sorts of things, because I'm curious and I want answers, and I don't like feeling powerless. So I've understood that, the imagination has real substance to it. So those are probably the best places. I have a website, inspiration.biz.
All kind of good stuff going on.
Yeah, lots of stuff, lots of books, lots of, I need to have an exhibition. If anyone wants to have my art at some point, because I'm just bursting at the seams. I haven't done one of those for a while, but that might be in a couple of years. I don't know. So.
Well, you've accomplished a lot. Happy for you, because you're one that goes after for better things, and I think that's fascinating. We need more people in the world like that. People, I think in some ways right now, and over the past few years, and probably will still be affected into the future few years, are going to have to relearn, reboot, re-strategize to, live the way you are, try to live the way others are, the way I'm trying to live, and always keep that positive motivation going forward. Just like you said, when I brought up the thing about doing something for your partner, it may come with cleaning the dishes after, but you know what? Just do it. If you do, you make the breakfast, do the dishes, and it's done. It's that simple. You don't have to stand around all day and let the things collect and gather. And because remember, what you reap in rewards, are only going to be as great as you try to, collect them as the best you can for yourself. But
Yeah, when you wash dishes, you're washing. Yeah, you could just wash the dishes, but you can also use your mind. What are you washing? What else are you cleansing? You're cleansing your body, your mind, some part of the planet. When I'm out on my bike and I'm on a hill and I'm potentially very tired, riding up a hill without an electric motor on my bicycle. Somerset Hills are chilling. But then it's, well, where can I let my mind go? And I'll take it into the chain of hills and see what I can see in the ancient sites around there and see whether I can increase this releasing of the souls. In other words, any moment of now could be so much richer. It's just that we've just forgotten it. We've just been hypnotized into their program of shut down, locked down, closed off. And all we need to do is open. And we find that all of the tools are right at our fingertips. So that's why I made that Living as Medicine course. It's all aspects of your daily life to look at how actually you think you haven't got everything or anything, and it turns out you've got everything you need right there.
Yeah, I would agree. I find life to be that way. And again, I think, this positivity, these types of conversations is help guide things, because talking about them, people listen to them. And I'm going to do the best I can to get your broadcast out with me today, everywhere that I can. I hope some things come back to you. Do you have any books lingering out there right now that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, well, my kids' books are available only as PDFs these days because I've run out of the beautiful books. But what I love about them is they're called Transmissions from the Planet Zog. Okay, it's a vision of the future, bringing it back into our time to help restructure our time. So it's got all these technologies that actually exist now on our planet. Some of them didn't exist when I was writing it. But I made it for children because children want that. And most adults don't realize that there are visions out there for their children. You give children certain information and they will run with it. So I've got those books. I've got books on education. I've got lots of different things because if I'm alive, I want to be able to bring through what I've got. Otherwise, what's the point of me being here? I may as well gather and hone and bring across. It's not going to be for everybody, but yeah, that's why I like to do that. So those all the books are on my website. I've been told your website's too complicated, but there's a page saying books and courses, so you can just go and buy my books there.
I think that's a very interesting place, and of what you did and what you created there, because we can look at a child and this could be that new book, and in ways it can be educational and it can be disastrous, but you're giving it to them where you're creating fun back into the book to get humanity reading again.
Yeah, and I'm just writing a new series on conversations with Elfie the fairy because of my beautiful little granddaughter. So I gave her the first audiobook and she listened to it, and then she and mommy and daddy listened to it, and then she had questions, 3.5 years old. And I'm illustrating it, and I'm going to do a whole series next year, because if that little bright, incredible spark loved it, then of course there'll be many, many who do. And it's a joy for me to make something simple and beautiful, because there's enough darkness out there.
Oh, most definitely. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. I really do. It's exactly what we do need, though, and this effort moving forward as we are. Again, I'm going to thank you for being here today. I'm going to try to do a little closeout and representing something from Johnny. So I hope you understand that. And thank you so much for your time. And I didn't realize you had so many books and so many things going on. I'm sorry again that on that part, live and learn. And I will do a lot more looking into some of these magnificent things that I have not been able to catch up on yet. That's putting it politely, to get out of not knowing exactly sometimes how many amazing things a guest is doing.
But it's not your fault, is it? That's the censorship. That is the closed down world.
That is in ways. You're right. You're right. Where would we all be if things were just normal? Who's to say? Who's to say? But I've had a magnificent time. You're just brilliant, and I think I would not think I would like to have you back sometime in the future, if you feel that you would enjoy more discussions like this.
I absolutely adored it. Thank you so much. It's really fun to be able to talk like this, even if it makes me go very red at the moment. I just did a facial treatment, so I got very red skin.
Oh, really? Well, I
I'll merge
I
into my
can't see a
background.
thing wrong. I can't see a thing wrong.
Good.
And anyway, as far as that, I'm going to continue on to narrate and close down and do a little bit of Christmas happiness for the great people who do take the time to watch, share, and help, and follow some of the platforms that I do. They're all over the place. I do a lot of them, but that's because, the criteria of the groups require certain types of information. So you do different show topics. They go here. They just don't go there. They go here. They go everywhere. But it's all fun. So I do thank you for being here with me today. And I hope you keep in touch. And if I can do anything into the future for you, please just ask. I'll be more than happy to do anything I can. And praises for all your work. Truthfully.
Oh, Michael, thank you so very much. I really appreciated you bringing me on. Thank you.
Not a problem. Not a problem. You have a blessed day and a Merry Christmas to you. Okay, everybody. That was our guest. She was fascinating, wasn't she? And I would like to do something a little different. I don't normally do this, but because Maria got tied into London in traffic and just stuck there, I thought I'd do something that a friend of mine, Johnny, put out. It's pretty interesting. It really is. It was somewhat of subject matter of what I was going to talk about with Maria, and but a little bit more. So let me fire up the amplifier here into the sound system, and I'm going to play you something from a good friend of mine. I'm just going to leave it at that part there. And because I really think his work is fascinating. So have a listen. Have a listen.
Newgrange Monument out in Ireland, which is an enormous stone structure built around 3800 BCE or 5,000 years ago. When you visit this site, there is a sun portal above the door that has a cross or a crux-shaped chamber inside, which, keep this in mind, it was built thousands of years before Christianity, and it has a solstice alignment that lights up inside only for the week of the winter solstice from December 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. It's a big deal to attend this every year, and people come from all over the world to witness this event. These type of sun portals and solstice alignments can be found everywhere, including at Karnak in Egypt and Chichen Itza in Mexico. If that is not evidence of a global dissemination of cultures and sciences that has existed for thousands of years, I don't know what is. According to Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages, this myth of the dying god originally came from Atlantis. It also serves as part of the initiatic rites of the mystery schools, as it is symbolic of the transitioning out of the lower shadow of the false self and being raised to the higher sphere above us, or we could call that being enlightened. I'm reminded of a beautiful initiatory passageway for the neophyte from the Golden Dawn that was lovingly preserved by Dr. Israel Regardi that goes, "Inheritor of a dying world, we call thee to the living beauty. Wanderer in the wild darkness, we call thee to the gentle light. Long hast thou dwelt in darkness. Quit the night and seek the day." In my conversations with author and esotericist Jay Widener, he revealed to me that sometime in the early 90s, he met with a wealthy, high-ranking Mason from Europe that allowed him to have access to a private library full of rare and expensive esoteric books. The only rule was that he could only read them, was not allowed to take any of them home. It was there that he learned about a ritual in French Freemasonry that is very interesting. Apparently, the initiate is placed in a completely dark room for 3 days by his brothers and told to lie down inside of a light, tight coffin. The brothers would then take the coffin out to a hill with a view of the east. They do this right before the sunrise. The initiate who is also blindfolded, is taken out of the coffin and is now facing the east. As the first lip of the sun makes its way over the horizon, the blindfold is taken off the initiate, exposing him to the first light and days. For the entire time of the sunrise until the bottom of the sun has left the horizon, the initiate absorbs the early morning light. The initiate is then blindfolded and placed back in the coffin and taken back into the dark room. The initiate then spends the next 40 days completely in the darkness, just like the Jesus fast in the Bible, which involves a period of 40 days and 40 nights. Subsequently, this ritual promises long life for the initiate. According to Jay Widener, what is likely going on here is that this ritual is designed to create as much melatonin as possible in the brain. We know that melatonin is a life extender. By going into the dark for 3 days, the initiate creates a large amount of melatonin in their body. Of course, the pineal gland secretes 2 hormones, melatonin in the dark and serotonin in the light. Serotonin is also closely connected to NN-DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, the most powerful hallucinogenic drug on the planet. As the initiate views the sunrise, all of the melatonin that was created over the 3 days of darkness is instantly converted to serotonin. At that point, the initiate has to be helped up by his brothers because the 6 or 7 minutes of viewing the rising sun is creating so much serotonin that it becomes an overwhelming experience. By placing the initiate back inside the dark chamber, this blinding dose of serotonin is then converted back to melatonin. But now, the melatonin is almost a super melatonin. According to the latest scientific research, melatonin is also what causes our body to reverse the aging process. I suspect that these solar initiations came from ancient Egypt originally, and they probably used an empty sarcophagus in Karnak or someplace where the sun would align during a solstice period. We learned about a similar initiation with the death of the Egyptian god of the underworld, Osiris, who is murdered by his brother Set, who cuts him into 42 pieces and takes his phallus off. His blood then trickles down into the ground where the sprig of an evergreen, a tamarisk, or an acacia grows, and this is symbolic of everlasting life. He is then brought back to life after 3 days when Isis reattaches his phallus, mounts him, and gives birth to Horus, the morning sun. We find this story with the death of Attis, who became Adonis from the Phrygians, and in the Masonic allegories with Hiram Abiff, who is accosted by 3 ruffians and buried at the brow of Mount Moriah. This scene is reenacted by the initiates of Freemasonry. This is also what happens to Jesus in the Bible as he dies for 3 days and comes back to life after Mary Magdalene visits the sepulchre. The Bible calls the evergreen that sprouts up a Jesse tree, and this is actually where the tradition of the Christmas tree comes from.
Okay. It was really fascinating. Again, I just wanted to share that because it had fascinating information in it that speaks about a lot. And today, I think we touched base on a lot of those things. Special thanks to Johnny Enoch for sharing this. What a great presentation. Because, we look for facts within information. And there's many of them out there. Direct your focus the best way you can. And, as I always say, digest that information to come to a conclusion that you're happy with in yourself, your own being, who you are. And let that guide you. Let that be your source of guidance. We do a lot of things. We're going through a lot of radical times, but it is, hey, Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas time. I want to wish every one of you just that. I want to thank Maria, even though she wasn't here today, because she's such a marvelous friend to me. She truly is. Remember, her accomplishments and her credentials are so immense, just as Isabel was today, and her information. Little loss of thought on the mind there for a second. I almost thought I said the wrong person. Hey, I'm trying here. It's all fun. It really is. Also, remember, Maria will be coming to America's Stonehenge. I believe it's in April. I hope I'm right on that. I don't have the information directly in front of me. It was something she would have been sharing today. And she will take us back into time, and she will try to explain everything as she always does through her documentaries, her appearance on Gaia that will be coming out shortly. So we have all these great channels out there. Sometimes they don't seem to be so great, but look, if you look at things from the positive and the people who are presenting the informations, no matter if we're talking about drones or we're talking about politics or esopolitics, it doesn't matter. What matters is who you are, what makes you up, and keeping your family and loved ones as close to you as you can through the holiday season. Let the examples of life be your tradition. And that is the best I can say to anybody who listens to me, because I do try to live my positivity through messages and guests that can bring you the best information. Most recently, I've been posting a lot of pictures, and they're always in the front of my page. It's because I've been humbled and so blessed to have such special guests come on with me, and they're immense. I've had everybody from people within the Bigfoot community, and ufology, and just so many different platforms bringing so much of information. Great book authors, and some of them writing 20, 30, 40 books. It's not a joke. I'm just a small pea in the pod here. But as I said, I've been blessed to be able to have these doors open to myself. I will tonight at some point put out something a little bit different. I've been doing some shows recently on America Rebellion. I've done some with Randy Rhodes. I believe he still goes, all roads lead to Rome or home. It's just a tease that I'm throwing out there to him. I don't know if he'll ever hear that. But I've been putting some really good information, and I have a lot of good conversations with people about this information about TGS. TGS is a personal friend of mine who is releasing information. He is a whistleblower. I'm not going to say it any other way. That is what it is. And that is who he is. And he has been in touch with everybody. It's at times gets quite loud. And it's a briefing of disclosure for you of something that you need to know. I'm going to try to put something together later this evening and get it out before Christmas to give you a little other follow-up information of what you may not know about when we're looking up at the skies right now and experiencing these things that we are. Some of this information will lead you into the exact places where the technologies were, who the people were behind the mysteries of why we're seeing things that are occurring right now. And I made a promise to this friend who I've done shows with in the past that I will share his information. And it was asked of me to do that, and I will do that. So I want to thank you guys again for always listening. And, again, these pictures I've been posting, it's not about greatness. It's about actually how humbled I am that I have been able to bring people on that can educate us, enlighten us, and help us seek further travels in our journey that we all have at this one-time place that we are within. No matter how good or how bad, we can always avoid the negativity. We have the power to walk away from anything we don't want to choose to be around, and let that be your focus, no matter how it works out. Whether the analogy is a little different from what I just said, just step away. Live within the light of where you feel good and best at. With that being said, I wish all you a very Merry Christmas, all your families, your loved ones, and I hope to see nothing but your dinners being on Facebook, because right now it's just all I'm seeing are their advertisements. I'm not seeing any of you great friends that I've made out there. Also, a small favor, because, the imprisonments that they put us in and subject us to, if anybody can like and share to their favorite groups and whatnot, we touched on a lot. I don't think anybody through the holiday season would be upset if the show landed up wherever you wanted to put it. With that being said, thanks everybody for listening. I thank my guest today. She was such a brilliant, brilliant speaker. I hope you learned some things. I hope you will accept some of the things that you heard. Have a great, pleasant day, and I'll be around.